Hello and welcome to Flipped Video 19. Today we're going to talk about how the United States got involved in World War I. So the topics, the standards that we're going to address are 23 and 24. We're going to be able to explain the causes of World War I and the reasons for the initial declaration of U.S. neutrality. We're going to explain the reasons for American entry into World War I, including the use of unrestricted submarine warfare, the Zimmerman Telegram, the defense of democracy, and economic motivations. We're going to start by looking at military strength at the beginning of World War I, because this is really, really important. Okay, so Germany had 1,850,000 troops, all right, and 17 large warships, all right. These are big steel ships, okay? Austria-Hungary had 500,000 troops and 3 warships. Russia had 1,400,000 troops and 4 warships. France had 1,250,000 troops and 10 warships. Now, Britain only had 100,000 troops, but they had 29 warships. In the U.S., we only had 50,000 troops and 10 warships. Okay, so this is where we're at the beginning of World War I, and it really paints a picture, right? So who had the largest navy at the beginning of World War I? And that was Great Britain, right, with their 29 ships. But a close second with 17 ships is Germany. But who had the most troops? Germany with 1,850,000, and Russia and France also having 1 million. Okay, so that's a lot of troops and warships just to have on standby. So I want you to keep this in mind as we're going through and looking at how World War I began. So the alliances between nations increased the potential for war. Okay, so Europeans are prepared for war by forming alliances. Okay, there's 2 main alliances: the Triple Alliance, which is Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Italy, and the Triple Entente, which is France, Russia, and Great Britain. Okay, and the initial reason for these alliances were for peacekeeping. Okay, so they're not really forming these alliances to go to war, they're forming them to keep the peace. Okay, and so over time, though, leaders thought less and less about peace and what would come from those alliances, but the benefits that they would be in war. And that's where you get that last slide with all of the military buildup, right? So instead of thinking about a peacekeeping alliance where you don't really need a lot of military, they're starting to build up that military and thinking, well, you know what? Maybe we can go to war with this alliance. All right, and so then you want to take a look at the map. What does everything look like in Europe at the time? All right, so you've got the Allied powers, the Central powers, and the neutral powers. All right, so your Allied powers are in orange, all right? And these, there they are, right there, okay? And your Central powers are right here. Okay, and the neutral countries are right here. All right, so what do you see here, right? Do you see people being surrounded by the Allies, maybe? And maybe that might potentially be intimidating. All right, so there's also something you need to think about here with this picture, is Germany is still working on forming its borders, its identity, okay? And this, the German identity, is going to be strong throughout World War I all the way to the end of World War II, okay? The fact that they're forming those borders, they're forming their identity, because at this time, they keep changing sides. They keep changing who's going to rule them, all right? Right now, they have a emperor, I do believe. Okay, so if you base your analysis on these maps, you could predict where the major battles would be should there be a major war, right? And you could see they would be along these lines. So there's a significant assassination. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, was visiting Sarajevo, the capital of the Austria-Hungary province, Bosnia. Okay? They took a wrong turn, right? And some ethnic Serbs noticed this, and they took the opportunity to assassinate the Duke. And it shocked the world, and it started World War I. Okay, so things are really tenuous. People are starting to build up their military. People are trying to figure out what their identity should be, where their borders should be drawn, right? And then the straw that broke the camel's back, Archduke Franz Ferdinand takes a wrong turn somewhere, and he gets assassinated. And that started World War I. Okay, so here's your major players. And this is very similar to that map we just looked at. All right, your Allied powers are right over on the side here with France, Britain, Russia, Serbia, Italy, Japan, and the United States, but later on. All right, and your central powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria. Okay, those guys are sandwiched in between the Allied powers on the outside. And these guys right here, they're just trying to survive in between the big guys. So, as the war spread in Europe, President Wilson called for Americans to be impartial in thought as well as action. He says, in a melting pot nation that tried to make Americans a people from diverse origins, Wilson did not want to see the war set Americans against one another. At first, most Americans viewed the conflict as a distant European quarrel of land and influence, unless the U.S. nation's interests were directly threatened. America wanted no part, and they preferred to maintain what they viewed as traditional American isolation from European disputes. Still, many Americans felt that the war efforts were effects, and if you were truly impartial, is tough, right? Most held a preference to one or the other, and many businesses benefited from this battle, okay? So, if you take a look at it, here's the president. War is really expensive, okay? We've just gotten done with the Spanish-American War. We kind of want to settle down. We want to stop being, spreading out. We want to start staying really isolated, not getting involved, right? Well, the Americans are like, well, there's a problem with this, all right? So Woodrow Wilson says, oh, well, we're a melting pot, therefore we shouldn't get involved because it could upset one people or the other. Well, the American people are like, yeah, we're a melting pot. That means that we have family in Europe. We have family that's involved in that war. Much like today where you have people coming up from Mexico to move into the United States. A lot of them still have family in Mexico. So if Mexico was involved in a war, right, they would be concerned and they would want to be involved. They wouldn't want America to take care of their family, right? Well, this is a very similar situation here, right, where the war is far off, but the people that are in America, their family's there. And also you got to remember, after the Spanish-American War, we started to grow our businesses outside of our borders. Okay, so we are spreading and becoming a world powerhouse. So here comes Germany's U-boats. Okay, Germany responded to the British blockade by sinking Allied ships using their submarines or U-boats. Okay, so Germany's fighting the British. Germany is using their submarines to get past the British blockade, who is trying to, cut things off, right? So the German U-boat sunk an American passenger ship, the Lusitania, off the coast of Ireland. This is a big deal because 1,200 people died, all right? German officials claimed correctly that the ship was also carrying contraband ammunition. And that is what got the U.S. in trouble, okay? So we still participated in this war on an economic basis, right? And so the Lusitania indeed had ammunition on it, and they were disguising that ammunition with a passenger ship, all right? So President Wilson is shocked, but he still refused to go to war. He's like, okay, you kind of called us. on that. And so Germany's like, okay, here's the deal. You don't put any more ammunitions on your boat, we won't sink any more of your passenger ships. All right, so we have a deal. So even though Wilson wanted to stay at peace, he began to prepare for war at the end of 1915. Congress passed two pieces of legislation to prepare: the National Defense Act and the National Construction Act. Defense Act expanded the Army, and the Construction Act built more warships. Okay, so way back at the beginning of this, we looked at troops and warships. This is where we start growing that, okay? So still hoping to stay out of the war in 1916, Wilson ran for re-election with the slogan, "He keeps us out of war." And he actually won, because there was a large portion of the people that were like, we really kind of don't want to get involved in this. Well, a couple things happened. Two events led the U.S. into war, okay? Germany sent the Zimmermann Note to Mexico that proposed an alliance, and U.S. and Great Britain intercepted it, okay? So it did a couple things in this, with this, you know, U.S. declared war on Germany. It said if the U.S. declared war on Germany, Mexico would declare war on the U.S. That's what they wanted. And if they were victorious, Mexico would get back the states of Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. Okay, so we didn't talk too much about the Mexican-American War. It happened before the Spanish-American War. Okay, but in the process of that war, we ended up getting Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. All right, well, the Zimmermann telegram, Germany's going in there saying, well, here's the deal. You make an alliance with us, and we win, we'll get you your land back. And U.S. found out about this telegram. Mexico was not for it anyways, but still the U.S. is like, wait a minute, you are definitely making a declaration of war on us. And then Germany once again announced unrestricted submarine warfare on Britain, which means that passenger ships were up for grabs. Passenger ships could get hit. And so this was kind of the last straw for Wilson. He's like, that's it. No more. We're going to go to war with you, because you have essentially challenged us to war. So here's a map, and it shows the German U-boats, it showed ships sunk by U-boats, okay? So this is why it's such a big deal that the U-boats, when they announced unrestricted warfare, okay, German U-boats destroyed more than 11 million tons of Allied shipping and killed nearly 14,000 people, okay? So if you look where all of the ships that were sunk, they're right here where that blockade is at, right? But they're also all the way out here. So it would be really easy for the U.S. to be trying to bring people and supplies to the United Kingdom and get hit by these U-boats. And there are even some reports that there were U-boats noted right off the U.S. coast. They made it pretty far over. All right, so we're back to our standards. What caused World War I? All right, and so what caused World War I was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, but it was also these alliances that were building up, right? So they're building up the alliances, they're building up their military, and the assassination of the Duke is what really pushed them over. But the U.S. said, hey, look, we're a melting pot. We don't want to get involved, all right? We want to stay at peace. We have too many people that would be involved. So unfortunately, though, U.S. got involved in World War I, all right? And we got involved because they sunk the Lusitania. And they promised after that Germany would not sink any more ships. Well, Germany went back on that. The Zimmermann telegram said that, hey, look, we want to attack using Mexico, all right? And the economic motivations is we're losing people and property. And defense of it against democracy, in Germany, there was monarchies, right? And so the U.S. wanted to push back the monarchies.